Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. At this moment, he suddenly became very calm. His thoughts seemed to go back to 50 years ago, in the plum forest at the foot of the Li Yunxiao peak. The plum blossoms were brightly lit, and an 11 or 12-year-old young man in green clothes was standing in the snow, practicing the most basic Vajra fist over and over again. Every time the young man threw a punch, a plum blossom would float down. It bloomed and withered under his fist intent, turning into bits of pink snow mud. 998 punches. 999 punches. 1,000 punches. Who? The young man let out a huge breath, wiped the sweat off his forehead, and lay down on the snow. The strange thing was that as soon as he fell, the white snow and mud around him immediately melted, and the area within a radius of more than 10 meters became dry. Master, when can you teach me the second martial skill? Two figures appeared beside the young man. He jumped up happily and ran to the middle-aged man, begging. Humph, with your stupid aptitude, you should be satisfied that you can learn the Vajra fist in this life. A slightly older youth beside the middle-aged man sneered and snorted, I've been training for 3 years, but I still haven't reached the Wuzong stage. How would Master have the time to teach a piece of trash like you? The young man was furious. He raised his fist and rushed over, roaring, Jun Ruyun, I want to duel you. Jun Ruyun laughed contemptuously. You? We'll talk about the duel again when you're able to take one of my moves. You'd better save some time to practice your promising Vajra fist. The young man rushed up angrily but was stopped by the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man smiled and said, Jun Ruyun is right. You should be content that you can learn the Vajra fist in this lifetime. The young man's face was ashen as he said dejectedly, if even Master says so, it seems that my aptitude is truly terrible. Master, do I really have the talent to practice martial arts? The middle-aged man bent down and patted the young man's hair with his broad palm. He chuckled and said, Do you like to practice martial arts? Do you like it? The young man's eyes were wide open and clear as he muttered to himself, even though it's very boring and tiring to train like this every day, day after day, year after year. But Ingluo, I really like it. I really like the feeling of being filled with power. Every time I punch, I feel like this world belongs to me. Under the power of my fist, I dominate everything. Master, I beg you to take me to the end of the endless martial Tao. The teenager knelt down. 2 lines of tears fell into the snow and mud, forming crystal-clear ice beads. Jun Ruyun revealed a disdainful expression and turned his head to the side. The middle-aged man chuckled and said, Xiao Huang, I don't know if you have the talent for martial arts. However, I know that you have a talent that no one else has, and that is an unyielding will, an indomitable courage, and a heart of a true powerhouse. The teenager stopped crying and opened his eyes wide. Really? Then when will Master teach me the second martial skill? The middle-aged man's eyes flashed with a sharp light. He raised his head with a smile, looked at the endless sky, and said indifferently, Your name and body will be destroyed, but the river will flow through the ages. Young Emperor Hao Lian's thoughts returned to the present. The white figure in front of him descended from the sky and gradually became clear in front of his eyes. It turned out to be a 16 or 17-year-old youth in white. He revealed a look of disappointment, but his eyes flashed with surprise. He didn't know why, but this young man overlapped with that stalwart figure, and his every move was so familiar. The young man was Yunxiao. He swooped down just in time to see the scene of the 9 heavens will collapsing. Staring at the desolation on Xiao Huanghalian's face, he sighed and said, Your name and body will be destroyed, but the river will flow through the ages. Young Emperor Halian's body trembled, and his pupils suddenly contracted as if an electric current had passed through them. It was as if a thunderbolt had struck him. His spiritual sense moved like lightning, and time seemed to have passed for a moment, but it felt as if 10,000 years had passed. He smiled, and 2 lines of tears filled his eyes, flowing down his cheeks. He choked and muttered, I understand now. So Master had already told me about this opportunity 50 years ago. He threw his head back and laughed out loud. The crumbling of his body suddenly stopped at this moment. The scattered will of the 9 heavens seemed to be attracted by a force and madly gathered into his body. Not only did it repair his body, but it also brought with it endless power. He suddenly stood up from the ground, raised his right hand to the sky, and pointed down, saying, "The rule of the heavens starlight." His left hand pointed at the ground and shouted, "The law of the earth pulse." 2 rule forces suddenly emerged, and the wind and clouds surged in all directions, beginning to condense his broken body. What? Feng Yi and Chen Chuanjiu were shocked. They were forced back by the power of heaven and earth, and their eyes were filled with fear. How could the 9 heavens' will, which had already collapsed, be condensed again? However, the 2 of them didn't have time to think about this. The Emperor's qi of the 9 heavens and the laws of heaven and earth emanating from young Emperor Haolian's body had already frightened them, and they immediately ran away in horror. If Feng Yi was in its peak state, he would not be afraid. But now, not only did he lose an arm, but his body was also in a mess. He was basically hanging on with one breath. At this moment, he was extremely regretful. Why did he have to meddle in other people's business? He should have just snatched a few profound armaments and left. Young Emperor Haolian stood up, his emperor's qi surging. He stared at the escaping Feng Yi and Chen Chuanjiu, and finally revealed a sinister smile. He raised his fist and smashed it down. Vajra fist. A black void appeared under his fist force, and the laws of heaven and earth condensed into a fist. His feet shattered the earth, and his fist broke through the void. The end of the endless universe, the end of the endless universe, the immortal emperor of the 9 heavens and 9 earths. Martial will of the 9 heavens, immortal fist. Break the sky, break the earth, and break the world. The ultimate power of martial Dao Emperor Qi of the 9 heavens. Feng Yi was shocked as he felt the power coming at him. He shouted, "One move to break all techniques." That was impossible. He's only just advanced to the rank of a martial supreme. How could he have such terrifying power? Even if he was at his peak, he would not be able to withstand the power of this punch, let alone his current sickly appearance. He and Chen Chuanjiu were not the only ones who were shocked. Even the big demon, Little Green, and the rat emperor in the sky were extremely shocked. The strength of this kind of fist intent completely exceeded the scope of their understanding. Young Emperor Haolian had only studied this one fist technique in his life. When he became a martial emperor and comprehended heaven and earth, his understanding of the fist technique had already reached the peak of martial arts. Even a titled martial emperor or a grandmaster might not be able to surpass him in the understanding of fist intent. The punch finally achieved the effect that Yunxiao had envisioned, which was to achieve the immortal fist intent and break all techniques with one move. Yunxiao's eyes shone with wild joy. The achievement of this punch was enough to give Haolian, a newly promoted martial emperor, a good status in the world of the 9 heavens realm. Li Yunxiao, it'll be too late if you don't leave now. Little Qing was also stunned by the power of young Emperor Haolian's punch. However, it had used up a lot of the divine tree's essence energy in its body. Moreover, it was shaken by the power of young Emperor Haolian's punch, so it was on the verge of collapsing. At this moment, the eternal evergreen tree was already towering into the starry sky. Above it, a silver river could be seen. Within the river, the stars revolved, seemingly undying. The ancient Baron's land is on the other side of the Milky Way. I only have one chance to send you there. Yunxiao gave Haolian Xiaohuang a look, then flew into the sky with a wry smile while cursing, "You really know how to pick the right time. It's not easy for me to meet my disciple, and I haven't even had a sip of tea." Qing frowned as if it had thought of something. It didn't say anything and only sneered, "If I didn't owe you my life, I wouldn't even bother to talk to you. I've already helped you open the path to the starry sky, but I don't care if you can cross the Milky Way. I've also returned the favor of saving my life, and I don't owe you anything anymore." Yunxiao did not bother to talk to him. He flew straight up along the path to heaven opened by the ancient evergreen tree. The branch went straight through the Milky Way and reached the other side of the endless starry sky. In the Milky Way, the powerful force of the universe filled it, giving off colorful and beautiful colors. It was a pleasing sight, but it was also a destructive existence. If one was not careful, they would be in danger of dying. However, the ancient evergreen tree seemed to be very neutral, and it was safe and sound under that force. Under the tree of God, Feng Yi felt that the space had been completely locked down by the laws, and there was no way to escape. In his panic, he also went berserk and roared, "If you want to kill me, I'll make sure you die a horrible death." He desperately poured his power into the 5 elements beast taming ring, intending to self-detonate his Xian artifact to break through the suppression of Emperor Qi and rules, and fight for a chance of survival. The eyes of the Rat Emperor, who was standing in the air, narrowed. Countless 5 elements spirit-devouring rats drilled out of the ground and rushed towards Feng Yi, biting and tearing it. "Damn animal, get lost." Feng Yi was shocked. He shook his body, and all the spirit rats around him exploded. However, there were so many of them that they broke the power of his profound level weapon and could not self-destruct. Boom boom boom. Young Emperor Hao Lian's immortal fist rumbled down. Even the starlight in the entire world dimmed under this punch. In an instant, Feng Yi and Shen Chuanjiu were swallowed up and spread rapidly in all directions. The power was so strong that it shook people's hearts. The weapon spirit of Chen Chuanjiu's heavenly fury ancient bronze sword had also been shattered by this punch. It had completely turned into a piece of refined iron raw material and was inserted into the ground. It was like his tombstone, desolate and lonely. The 5 elements beast taming ring also burst open, and the ring axis collapsed. 5 different colored lights shot out in 5 directions. It was the 5 rat kings who were sent flying by the force when the beast taming ring exploded. The Rat Emperor was overjoyed. He could feel the life force of the 5 rat kings. Although they were weak, they were still alive. They disappeared in the air. After the punch, young Emperor Hulian looked up and saw the figure disappearing into the sky. He muttered to himself, "Master?" His face suddenly sank, and he turned into a golden light and chased after him. At this moment, he had a big question in his heart. He must catch up to that person and ask him. Standing on the tip of the ancient evergreen tree, Yunxiao stared at the opposite side of the starry sky. He was surrounded by the energy turbulence in the universe, and he could be annihilated if he was not careful. Fortunately, the divine tree's burning essence energy had turned into a weak energy that could actually repel the power of the turbulent flow. Just as he was walking carefully, the tree trunk in front of him suddenly began to disappear at a speed visible to the naked eye. A huge shadow appeared in the starry sky, causing him to open his mouth in shock and be instantly stunned. "Your sister. You can't play like this." Yunxiao's heart suddenly sank. The shadow that was slowly moving through the starry sky turned out to be the ancient true spirit, Wu, who had appeared in the sky of the demon land not long ago. True Spirit was currently doing something that made him go crazy, devouring the ancient evergreen tree. Although the devouring speed was very slow, Wu's body was very large. With just a few bites, he had already bitten 1,000 meters away. The tunnel disappeared in front of him little by little. It was impossible to reach the other side. "Your sister." Yunxiao cursed in anger. The starry passage was about to be destroyed, and it was impossible to cross the eternal Milky Way. So, he could only return without any success. At this moment, a shadow appeared beside him and said softly, "Big brother Yunxiao, don't be anxious. I'll help you." Yunxiao was taken aback. He looked at the figure and said, "Are you Yi Fan or Yi Nantian?" He knew Yi Nantian would never call him brother. That person was Yi Fan. He smiled bitterly. "It should be Xuanji Yi Fan. The ancestor left behind a large amount of information in my sea of consciousness, which made me a little confused. But I am still me. Yi Fan, this is not wrong." "So, the last half of Yi Nantian's divine sense taught you the control method of Noah's ship?" Yunxiao asked. Yi Fan nodded and said bitterly, "Unfortunately, I am too stupid. I can't master it at all. I can only control it roughly. I don't know if I can help big brother Yunxiao." "Forget it if you're not confident," Yunxiao said. "This void turbulence is too dangerous. If you're not careful, you'll end up dead. You'd better take it easy." He didn't have to go to the ancient desolate land. He only wanted the immemorial astral wind, which could open the divine realm tablet's wind territory. Yi Fan's hands formed a seal, he said, I will try. The speed at which he formed the hand seals was very slow and very out of practice. However, golden tadpole-like characters could be seen on the seal. The seal on his chest shot out a golden light and projected not far away. A small golden boat sailed out from it like the moon. The moonlight flowed and reflected on the small boat, making it bright and clean. It didn't look like an invincible weapon in the legends, but rather like a crescent-shaped precious jade, emitting a warm light. A ray of light rose from the small boat and slowly unfurled. It turned out to be a sail formed by light. After it was unfurled, the boat became full of spirituality. It strode over and quietly stood in front of the two people, flowing lights rotating.